Welcome back to the exam preparation video series for AZ-700, Designing and Implementing Microsoft Azure Networking Solutions. I am Karl de Winter, a Microsoft technical trainer, and this is the fifth and the last episode in this series. In this episode, we will focus on designing and implementing Azure Network Security Services. We will cover how to implement and manage network security groups, design and implement Azure Firewall, Azure Firewall Manager, and Web Application Firewall deployment. Here is a list of all the different skills you may be tested on. These are sometimes referred to as may include, meaning they may or may not be on your exam. And this list isn't exhaustive. And while we won't be covering every skill in this video, be sure you are able to perform these skills before taking the exam. A network security group in Azure helps filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in an Azure virtual network. Do remember that there is a limit to how many NSGs you can create for each Azure region and subscription. Although NSGs can be configured at the subnet or the NIC level, it is important to understand that they are always enforced at the NIC level. Even if you apply an NSG to a subnet, communications between virtual machines inside of that subnet will be subject to the rules of that NSG. Application security groups are labels that you apply to specific NICs in your environment, and they are relevant to scope of a single VNet, and allowing you to group virtual machines and define network security policies based on those groups. You can associate an ASG to a network interface card only if the network interface is attached to a virtual machine. Follow the steps given on the screen. Depending on the type of service you choose, you may have to select additional details such as protocol, action, and so on. Know that security rules and NSGs enable you to filter network traffic that can flow in and out of a virtual network subnet and network interfaces. VNet flow logs offer a way of getting visibility into the traffic in your virtual network by logging packet flows at the Azure data center level. So instead of having to send traffic through an appliance. Now, VNet flow logs allow very granular configuration, and they can be enabled at the VNet, subnet, or even NIC level. Know that NSG flow logs allows to log information about IP traffic flowing through a network security group. You can view information about ingress and egress IP traffic through an NSG. Know to assess a VM for network vulnerabilities, such as open ports using effective security rules page. Validate if your NSG is working as expected based on a comparison between the configured and the approved security rules. Know that IP Flow Verify checks if a packet is allowed or denied to or from a virtual machine. The information consists of direction, protocol, local IP, remote IP, local port, and remote port. Know that to use an NSG with your Azure Bastion resource, you must create all required ingress and egress traffic rules. Omitting any of them in your NSG will block your Azure Bastion resource from receiving necessary updates in the future and hence expose your resources to future security vulnerabilities. Azure Virtual Network Manager is a toolset with different capabilities and supports managing security admin rules, which take precedence over rules that network security groups define. So Azure Virtual Network Manager can automatically create VNet connectivity based on one of the following two models: hub and spoke and full mesh. Azure Firewall is a fully stateful firewall as a service. It's available in 3 SKUs: Basic, Standard, and Premium. Azure Firewall Standard offers Layer 3 to Layer 7 filtering and threat intelligence feeds directly from Microsoft Cybersecurity. Azure Firewall Standard provides threat intelligence-based filtering, can alert and deny traffic from and to known malicious IP addresses, and domains that are updated in real time. Azure Firewall Premium tier provides advanced capabilities, include signature-based IDPS to allow rapid detection of attacks by looking for specific patterns. Make sure you know the key stages of deploying and configuring Azure Firewall. Deploy the firewall and policy to a virtual network, create a default outbound route, configure an application rule, configure a network rule, and configure a destination net or DNet rule. You can configure different types of rules by using a firewall policy. Now, with a firewall policy, rules are organized inside rule collections, which are contained in rule collection groups. Now, rule collections can be one of the following type: DNet, so destination network address translation, network, and application. Now, you can define multiple rule collection types within a single rule collection group. And you can define 0 or more rules in a rule collection. But the rules with a rule collection must be of the same type. Azure Firewall Manager allows you to centrally manage Azure firewalls across multiple subscriptions. It uses firewall policies to apply a common set of network and application rules and configurations to the firewalls in your tenant. Now, to create a secure hub, by deploying Azure Firewall inside an Azure Virtual One hub, you use Azure Firewall Manager. So traffic routing to the firewall is automated by Virtual One. So there is no need to create user-defined routes. Web Application Firewall protects web workloads and can be integrated with Azure Application Gateway and Azure Front Door. So it provides centralized protection for your web applications from common exploits and vulnerabilities. Keep the following steps in mind. So the Azure managed OWASP rules are enabled by default, or you can use your own custom rules. When you create a WAF policy, by default, it is in detection mode, and Web Application Firewall doesn't block any requests. Instead, the matching WAF rules are logged. You can change the mode settings to prevention, and in prevention mode, matching rules defined in the Microsoft Managed Rule Sets you selected are blocked and or logged in the WAF logs. For Web Application Firewall on Azure Front Door, Azure Managed Rule Sets provide an easy way to deploy protection against a common set of security threats and also includes the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Collection rules that are written in partnership with the Microsoft Intelligence team. Remember that there are two types of custom rules: match rules and rate limit rules. The Azure Managed Default Rule Set, the DRS, actively protect web applications from common vulnerabilities and exploits. The other option is using rules that are defined based on the OWASP core rule set. To implement a WAF policy, you associate the WAF policy with a front door and you configure WAF policy settings and rules. To recap, in this episode, we discussed how to implement and manage network security groups, design and implement Azure Firewall, Azure Firewall Manager, and Web Application Firewall deployment. Remember, this group accounts for 15 to 20% of the exam, so keep that in mind when preparing for the exam. With that, we also come to the end of the series. So thank you for watching our exam prep videos for AZ-700, designing and implementing Microsoft Azure networking solutions. We hope this series gives you an idea of the areas you are strong at and those which you need to revisit. If you feel ready, you can also attempt the official practice test. And for more information, you can visit aka.ms/AZ-700-exam. Now, on behalf of all of us at Microsoft, good luck to you and on your exam.